This is Israel's most sacred ground, the Temple Mount in Old Jerusalem. For centuries, it's been a source of conflict. What's ahead for this holy place? New insight from an expert right now on Jewish Voice with Jonathan Bernis.
Shalom and welcome to Jewish Voice, where we help you to discover the Jewish roots of your Christian faith. I'm Jonathan Bernis. Jerusalem is the holiest site of two religions, Judaism and Christianity, and next to Mecca, Islam as well. At the center of this ancient city is the Temple Mount. It's probably the most contested piece of real estate on planet Earth. It's also at the center of last days Bible prophecy. Is the temple going to be rebuilt? In fact, has it already started? Where will it be built? And is the Temple Mount even the correct location of the ancient temple? Is the Antichrist involved yet in this project? And if so, who is he? With us today is one of the foremost experts on this topic. Back to continue our discussion is my good friend, Dr. Randall Price. Dr. Price, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here all week with us. I really appreciate it. You go so far back in my history at Jewish Voice, and I just want to welcome you. You've been through, this is the third set you've actually been on, so it's great to have you back. We're talking about a subject that's so important. In fact, it's at the center of end-time Bible prophecy. Can you unpack that for us?
Well, let's just start with one prophecy, Daniel chapter 9 and verse 27, which we call the 70th week of Daniel. This is a very important prophecy because it focuses in on what will happen in the last days for the Jewish people. Not only for the Jewish people, but for all the nations as well, because Daniel's prophecy relates to Israel and to the nations. Mm-hmm. Now, what it says is that there's going to come a man who is related in some way to the people who destroyed the temple in the past, who will also be involved with the temple. He'll make some kind of covenant with the many, and the term there, Rabbim, refers to the Jewish leaders. And he will make this covenant with them, and it implies that from that will come the rebuilding of the temple, because 3.5 years later, it says that he is going to, as it were, violate or desecrate the temple. The term it uses is an abomination that makes desolate, and therefore other things happen. Now, the book of Revelation explains that his coming and doing this will result in the persecution of the Jewish people. So does the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and Jesus' Olivet Discourse. It says, when you see, and Jesus, this is Jesus' words, or Yeshua's words, when you see the abomination that makes it desolate, as was spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. And then it says, there's going to come this time of unparalleled tribulation, and that the Jewish people should flee from Jerusalem and Judah to some place where there's safety.
I want to establish for people what this site is, the thing we call the Temple Mount. We have some pictures of the modern Temple Mount. We have a problem here when you look at the picture because there's this gold dome on the Temple Mount. What's the problem with that?
Well, this building is called Kubiata Sacra, which means the Dome of the Rock. And it was built in the year 691 AD by one of the Muslim caliphs.
There it is.
The purpose was simply political. In that day and time, they had taken over the Byzantine Christian Empire that existed there. This was a centerpiece for Byzantine Christianity. They wanted to, most of the trade routes were going to Damascus, and they wanted to bring trade now into Jerusalem, which they were trying to develop. And so they made this building after Christian architecture, but clearly stating within the building that it was Islamic and that Christian belief was false. So it was to be attractive to the growing Islamic world. But they knew from the beginning that it was at the site of the original temple. In fact, that's why they rebuilt it. That's what their Caliph Omar, when he came to the site, was looking for, the site of the temple. And that really has persisted throughout Islamic history as the site of the temple until the present political situation.
I want to show another picture, and this is what's known as the Golden Gate, and I want people to notice that it's covered. Explain why.
The last time it was closed was by Suleiman the Magnificent in the 16th century. He was an Ottoman. That's how we get the Ottoman Empire. It started with his coming to the site. And he simply, as he went through it, he then sealed it back up. So,
now look more closely at the picture. Not only is it sealed, Randall, but there's a graveyard in front of it.
This is particularly significant because the graveyard that was put there in later history makes it impossible for Jewish people, and they believe also a Jewish Messiah, to come to that site. The Romans, we know from history, pushed most of the remains of the destroyed temple off that eastern side. So that huge covering of soil that's there and the cemetery on top of it, underneath are the stones of the original Temple Mount.
Now, for those that haven't been watching the previous programs, I want to go back and recap. Jerusalem, reestablished in 1967.
Yes.
Very significant date. Why? And then we'll talk about the modern movement to rebuild the temple. So 67, just quickly recap why that was so important.
67 is important because in the Six-Day War, the last day of that, June 7th, is when the Temple Mount came into Israeli hands. That sort of turned a page in history because there had never been Jewish sovereignty over Jerusalem for the last almost 2,000 years, and now it existed. And because it had not existed, Jewish hope and expectation was always next year in Jerusalem, next year in Jerusalem. Now they're there. And so now it's next year in the New Jerusalem. Okay? This is the way the Passover Haggadah now reads. And the idea is that we now have the possibility of the prophecies that talk about the restoration of Israel, its redemption, and the rebuilding of the temple could take place.
Okay, 1987, though, a movement begins to rebuild the temple.
All right, so Jewish Orthodox, who many were a part of the 67-day liberation of the city, say history could be reversed by this Palestinian uprising. They want to take over the Temple Mount and de-Judaize it. So their belief was, now it's time for us to begin a movement to rebuild the temple, make all the preparations necessary, because until we act, Messiah won't come. That's their
view. So there now is a movement to rebuild the temple.
Yes.
We have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about whether the temple can be rebuilt on that site with the Dome of the Rock there, or can it be built next to it? And what is the role of the Antichrist in all this? Is he involved now in an effort to rebuild the temple? So you don't want to miss that. And then later, we're going to take you behind the scenes at one of our recent medical clinics in Ethiopia. We're helping a community known as the Beta Israel, the House of Israel. These are Jews that live in utter poverty. Many have never even seen a doctor or a dentist. It's an amazing story, so don't go away.
Call now to order your copy of The Virtual Tour of the Temple. This simple-to-use DVD software program will help you discover the mystery of the Temple Mount, the holiest ground on earth. Find out how this sacred location fits into Bible prophecy and may signal the return of the Messiah. This DVD software program is like no other, revealing in a 360-degree view that allows you to interactively explore over 100 breathtaking panoramas at this amazing biblical site. You'll be given a rare full-color guided tour by renowned archeologist Dr. Randall Price, so you can experience the ancient temple as if you're really there. And this user-friendly software works with Mac or PC. Dr. Price secretly captured this astonishing undercover footage using high-resolution cameras, and he shares his expert insights into the temple's past, present, and future.
You can virtually tour that site itself.
We also want you to have Still Ready to Rebuild, a riveting DVD that uncovers plans to rebuild the temple. What is going on today on the Temple Mount that will shock the world? What is the media covering up? And how do these events connect to a coming Antichrist? And finally, we'll also include Is Peace Possible? An insightful book by Rabbi Jonathan Bernis. This book will help you understand the Middle East at this crucial time in history. Is Peace Possible will guide you as you learn key steps to bless the land and people of Israel.
I want you to understand end-time prophecy. I want you to understand the role of Israel in the rebuilding of the temple and how that all fits into what's ahead.
Your gifts of support will also help Jewish communities worldwide who suffer from poverty, disease, and despair. For them, hope remains out of sight. You can be that hope by partnering with Jewish Voice to help improve the lives of those living in Jewish communities and their neighbors in dire need. By supporting the work of Jewish Voice, you enable us to provide crucial medical, dental, and eye care. More importantly, you're helping us share the good news of Yeshua with scattered Jewish tribes throughout the world. Anything you can do will make a difference in their lives. Remember, God has promised to bless those who bless the Jewish people. Call the number on your screen now to bless the Jewish people. You can also click or write with your gift of support by going to our website, jvmi.tv, or writing to us at Jewish Voice, Post Office Box 6, Phoenix, Arizona, 85001. Please specify offer 1270 when giving $77 or more to receive your gifts. Call, click, or write.
Welcome back to my discussion with Dr. Randall Price. He's an expert on the Middle East and on Bible prophecy. He's produced a great resource that we're going to make available to you today, a virtual tour of the temple. What an amazing product. Talk about this product.
Well, today you can't go to the Temple Mount with a guide or even on your own and try to understand the historical background of it. It was the site of the first temple, site of the second temple. That's where Yeshua spent the last week of his ministry. But the Muslim authorities have prevented any kind of conversation, speech, or activity that would bring attention to the Jewish and Christian background. So that's forbidden. Even have people stationed to watch your lips to see what you're saying, or if you're possibly praying, and you will have your name written down, never be allowed back to the site.
By the way, that's a picture of if Jerusalem comes under the control of the Muslims,
yes,
it's not going to be an international city. That's the Temple Mount is
Sharia
an
law,
example of
Sharia
reality.
Law will be in force, and Christians and Jews will be considered dhimmi or second-class citizens.
So we can't go on the Temple Mount. You've taken the Temple Mount to us.
That's exactly right.
Love it. Yeah. Love it. I want you to, we're going to jump into the rebuilding of the temple again in just a moment, but I want people to understand the significance of this mount called Moriah, because it actually ties together a few different events in history. The temple's connected actually with the sacrifice of Isaac, or God's call to Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, the sacrifice of his son 2,000 years ago, and where it originally begins at the threshing floor of David. So go back and give us the history quickly.
We can go all the way back for this matter. Abraham starts it because God says, go to the mountains of Moriah to a place I will show you. And there offer your son as a burnt offering to me. So Genesis 22 is the background for this. And it was a crisis for Abraham because the only son through which the covenant would pass would be Isaac. And if he was to offer him, it would end the covenant, it would end the relationship with God. All the promises of Israel would be over. And we read elsewhere he realized that if he did this, God would raise him back from the dead to fulfill those prophecies. But nevertheless, he went. And when he went, God substituted in the place of Isaac a ram, and that became the burnt offering. And so he called that place the Mount of Provision. He said, in the mountain of the Lord will be provided. We run ahead in future history. Now we have the actual Son of God come, and he is condemned and crucified in that very vicinity. okay, on the mountains of Moriah, fulfilling certainly the type that was there in Isaac's binding and attempted offering. But he himself was offered as a burnt offering to God. But the judgment that came has that kind of connotation, that he was consumed. And that was done, of course, to take care of Israel's sins and the nation's sins, so that the Messiah who would be offered for them, God on that basis would forgive them of their sins, past, present, and future.
I want to go back to the movement to rebuild the temple. You date it to 87,
Yes.
20 years after Jerusalem was reconquered by the Jewish people. Something happens in 1987.
So they began an organization, several of them, the Temple Mount Faithful, the Temple Institute, a number of ones. And they have a concerted effort to prepare for this event. They begin to research, they begin to understand what's necessary. Going to have to develop a priesthood and train people on how to do the function of a priest in the future. Because when a temple comes, it'll be too late to wait to train all these people. It's got to be done now. If a temple is going to be rebuilt, you've got to have the implements and vessels that are part of the holy ritual.
You made the statement, actually, last time you were on the program, that just the fact that there's a movement to rebuild the temple, in the same way there was a movement to restore the Jewish people to Israel called Zionism, this is a forerunner of the eventual building of the temple, although it's not actually begun yet.
That's right. Many people in Israel think this is just a fringe movement, but if you look at the impact it's had over the last 30 years, it's changed a lot of even the secular focus, because when you have this denial that the temple ever existed, you have a denial that Israel ever existed. And the result is that the secular people say, we do need a temple. It'd be a national symbol of our independence. Who says we can't pray there?
It's clearly growing in popularity.
It is, in a sense. It's still, because it's under the control of Orthodox Jews, there's a rift between secular and Orthodox. But there is at least an understanding that someone needs to lead this movement and make sure that a Jewish presence remains.
Outline for us, just very, very briefly, because I want to get to some other questions. Yeah. Very briefly, what are some of the developments in the last decade towards the end of rebuilding the temple?
Quite a lot. All the vessels that are necessary for the ritual service in the temple have been now constructed. Nothing lacks. There's the great candelabra called the menorah that was built some 6 feet tall. There is the table of showbread that was constructed. There is also the altar of incense that is necessary. The priestly garments, the robes of the high priest, the breastplate of the high priest. This took years and years to understand.
All prepared.
All prepared,
done.
all ready.
All done. So things are moving forward. What about the reality of the Dome of the Rock on what we believe is the Holy of Holies? Can the temple be built next to it? Does that have to come down? How is this going to be resolved?
Well, a couple of things. First, the first temple was built at a site. When it was rebuilt, the book of Ezra tells us it's rebuilt on the ruins of the original temple. Now, the reason for that is because the Shekinah glory of God and the dedication of the first temple filled that Holy of Holies. And it never left there until just before the destruction of that first temple. And it was promised to return. The book of Ezekiel says it will return exactly the same way it left and fill that Holy of Holies. Well, it's got to come back to the exact same spot. Okay, so the Holy of Holies has to be in the same location.
So the dome has to come down somehow.
The dome has to
I'm not going to speculate that today. We just have a few seconds left.
Yes.
Has the Antichrist been revealed, and if so, is he involved in this project?
Well, he could be, and in the sense that we don't know exactly who he is or when he's going to appear. The events that will bring about the rebuilding of the temple and also its desecration are certainly there. We know that there's been a call for an internationalization of Jerusalem, that the way to negotiate the Temple Mount is to have a political echelon involved, or also to reach out and have a multi-faith type of emphasis there. That type of thing fits neatly into the Bible prophecy. So, but we have to remember the Antichrist has the life of a human being. So if he's alive today, these events are very close to us.
We have to have you back to talk more about it. Thank you for being
John.
here this week. We've just run out of time. This is Bible prophecy unfolding before our very eyes, and I really encourage you to get the products that we're making available. We want to sow these into your life as you sow into our mission to bring the gospel to Jewish people in need around the world. What you're about to see next will grab your heart because it's the essence of what Jewish Voice is all about. It's about helping Jewish people and their neighbors in some of the most remote places on earth. The video clip that you're about to see is from a recent clinic that we did in a small village in Ethiopia called Tash Gaint. Take a look.
Shalom, I'm Ezra from Jewish Voice, and I want to welcome you to rural northern Ethiopia, the city of Tash Gaint, where we're about to start about an hour and a half from now, our first ever Jewish Voice medical outreach here. Behind me, what you see are literally over 1,000 people who by word of mouth heard about this clinic opening this morning, this Sunday morning, and have queued up since 7 a.m., 5 hours and 10 minutes ago, just to see a doctor.
The impact here, both medically and spiritually, has been really incredible.
It's just crazy, just a primitive way just to see these people, but how blessed they are to come through and to be touched by the ministry of Jewish Voice. And what an honor to be a part of it.
This may be the only time this year, or maybe in their lifetime, that they have the opportunity to receive the treatment they need for free, paid for by those like you who love and want to be a blessing to the Jewish people and their neighbors.
As I think of one story of a young boy who had received trauma to his eye and probably would never have received care. And somehow they heard that there was an outreach here, and they found our team, and we were able to treat him surgically and restore that eye.
Think about tooth pain, mouth pain that you would have to live with every day for months or years without the ability to see a dentist, either because there isn't a dentist in your community or just because you can't afford to see one. So we're thrilled this week to provide this much-needed relief in Yeshua's name.
You know, I could see the pictures and the little pamphlets and the updates Jonathan Burness gives us, but to grasp the magnitude of this, I didn't have an appreciation for that.
You see Yeshua's ministry here happening. I mean, people are sick. They've got disease-filled feet, eyes with disease, cataracts, and they're being medically treated and supernaturally healed by Jewish people from Israel, by Jewish people from the U.S., ministering to Jewish people at the ends of the earth.
It's really been evident that if Jewish Voice wasn't here, many of these people would not receive the care that they're receiving now. There just are very few options for people in this region. And we know and we trust that there is a greater plan here, and that's why we're here. And so what a privilege to be a part of it.
I don't think life gets any better than this. This is what we were made to do. So thank you, Jewish Voice, for making this possible.
One of the most rewarding things in our field, and it really has spiritual implications as well, is that somebody can walk up to us completely blind and within hours be seeing again for the first time. And so in a dramatic way, we often will see an elderly person who hasn't seen their loved one or their grandchild in a decade, and overnight we take off the patch, they can see, and there's much rejoicing. And it's an opportunity for us to really share what true vision is and who the true light is, Jesus Christ, Yeshua.
We're thrilled that these people are coming in pain, and they're going to leave without it, knowing that they're loved and blessed.
Call now to order your copy of The Virtual Tour of the Temple. This simple-to-use DVD software program will help you discover the mystery of the Temple Mount, the holiest ground on earth. Find out how this sacred location fits into Bible prophecy and may signal the return of the Messiah. This DVD software program is like no other, revealing in a 360-degree view that allows you to interactively explore over 100 breathtaking panoramas at this amazing biblical site. you'll be given a rare full-color guided tour by renowned archaeologist Dr. Randall Price, so you can experience the ancient temple as if you're really there. And this user-friendly software works with Mac or PC. Dr. Price secretly captured this astonishing undercover footage using high-resolution cameras, and he shares his expert insights into the temple's past, present, and future.
You can virtually tour that site itself.
We also want you to have Still Ready to Rebuild, a riveting DVD that uncovers plans to rebuild the temple. What is going on today on the Temple Mount that will shock the world? What is the media covering up? And how do these events connect to a coming Antichrist? And finally, we'll also include Is Peace Possible?, an insightful book by Rabbi Jonathan Bernis. This book will help you understand the Middle East at this crucial time in history. Is Peace Possible will guide you as you learn key steps to bless the land and people of Israel.
I want you to understand end-time prophecy. I want you to understand the role of Israel in the rebuilding of the temple and how that all fits into what's ahead.
Your gifts of support will also help Jewish communities worldwide who suffer from poverty, disease, and despair. For them, hope remains out of sight. You can be that hope by partnering with Jewish Voice to help improve the lives of those living in Jewish communities and their neighbors in dire need. By supporting the work of Jewish Voice, you enable us to provide crucial medical, dental, and eye care. More importantly, you're helping us share the good news of Yeshua with scattered Jewish tribes throughout the world. Anything you can do will make a difference in their lives. Remember, God has promised to bless those who bless the Jewish people. Call the number on your screen now to bless the Jewish people. You can also click or write with your gift of support by going to our website, jvmi.tv, or writing to us at Jewish Voice, Post Office Box 6, Phoenix, Arizona, 85001. Please specify offer 1270 when giving $77 or more to receive your gifts. Call, click, or write.
Well, we're out of time, but before I go, I want to remind you to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Talking about Jerusalem, by the way, reminds me that we're going to Jerusalem for the 50th anniversary of the restoration of Jerusalem in 1967. We'll be there with Israelis, hundreds of thousands of them, at the Western Wall on the very day that Israel reclaimed this sacred spot. And it's also the 50th anniversary of Jewish Voice. So we hope you'll celebrate with us. It's going to be an incredible tour. It will be absolutely life-changing. We'll go throughout the Holy Land, but most importantly, we'll be in Jerusalem on the Jubilee moment when Israel was restored. I hope you'll join us.